Merlin Sports.
Hey everyone, this is Phenomena, and I'm here with
ddawg. What's going on?
hey, not too much, and we have our playoffs right around the corner coming up here. So this is going to be our preview show of the Eastern Conference. So you excited, ddawg?
Can't wait, man. NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. The best time of year. The playoffs, you cannot, the intensity of playoffs, you can't replace, man. It's unbelievable. It's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to start with a preview of the Eastern Conference and give you our picks. And let's start with the first matchup here. We'll start with the President Trophy winning New York Rangers, who will be hosting the Washington Capitals. Washington clinching the last spot with a couple of games to go in the regular season, or a couple of days to go. So this is your good old 1 versus 8. So how you seeing this panning out?
I like the Rangers in this one. They've been consistent all year. They're the best team in the league. But there's always that jinx of the President's Trophy. But I think the Rangers, I think the Capitals have been playing desperate for a few months now to try to get in the playoffs, and they just squeaked in. But they're not going to be. I think they'll be competitive, but I see a 6-game series with these guys. I just think the Rangers have too much going for them. They're on a bit of a mission from last year, but yeah, they have too much going for them to with the Capitals. I know the Capitals have the championship form, but they're not quite as good as Pittsburgh in their heyday, right? And I think that they had their run, but they're not that same team. Ovechkin's going to score a couple goals, that's what he does. But overall, they're not the same level of team as, let's say, a Rangers, who've got a big mix of youth and experience.
Mm-hmm. And I too like the Rangers, and I got this being a quick series because I think maybe Washington had to expend so much energy down the stretch to make the playoffs. I don't think it's a situation like Florida catching fire last year because they had to go on a heater just to make it and kept the heater going in the playoffs. I think Washington being an older team, I think they probably left they're gonna. I don't think they've recouped fully, and Rangers are just too deep, too much depth on forwards, on defense, and goaltending that I think they'll just take them in 5.
No, I totally agree. I think the Rangers, they just have too much for a team like Washington. And yeah, Washington's older. Their experience can probably get in a game or two, but not I don't see them taking this series. I don't see it unless the Rangers collapse. Like, Washington is not really hot coming in. They're 4-4-2 in the last 10. Rangers are 7-3. So the Rangers have been focused to get to go beyond what they went last year.
Yeah. Okay, so we're both in agreement there. Let's stay with the other Metropolitan matchup. It just so happened we'll finish off the Metropolitan Division, and we have New York Islanders visiting Carolina as they open the series there in Carolina. So Hurricanes and Islanders. Maybe I'll go first in this one. I think. Well, yeah. Islanders are 8-1-1 in their last 10, so they did accelerate the gas just to make the playoffs here, and those teams are usually dangerous that go on a heater right at the end of the season like that. They're already in playoff form. Luckily for Carolina, they are very good 7-3 in their last 10, so they're in good form right now too. I think that Gensel trade with Pittsburgh that added some scoring balance, and I think I like Carolina in this one, even though their goaltending. I guess it's Frederik Andersen, since he recently came back from injury. He's played well enough, I think, to be the starter, reclaim the starter's job. I think Islanders have the edge in goaltending, and Islanders are, they can give Carolina some trouble, and it wouldn't be a huge shock if Islanders beat Carolina, but I think Carolina wins this just because they're pretty deep, lots of depth in that lineup, good defense, and they gained some experience last year as a team, and they lost in the playoffs. So I think that having a lot of their young players gain playoff experience, I think, to help them to at least get by this round. So I like Carolina. I'm going to say in 6 because I think the Islanders give them fits at times. So who you like in this matchup, ddawg?
I like it's a tough series because I think the Islanders are playing really well right now. But I'm with you on Carolina. They're a team. They were a bit disappointed last year with how they performed, and I think they want to get back to where they got to last year as well, and go beyond. They've been really good the last few seasons. This is not like a shot in the pan. And the Islanders they haven't been at that top level tier. I think if you look in the Eastern Conference, there's really 4 really top level teams that are above everybody else, and Carolina is one of those 4. They've been really consistent all year. I mean, if the fact that the Rangers haven't been so great, I mean, Carolina would have run away with that division, right? So I think it's going to be an interesting series, but and I think it might go 7, but I think Carolina finds a way to win it, and fortunately for them, they'll have the home ice advantage. So the Islanders could pull an upset, but I don't see that. I think Carolina, they want to get through this first round because they got bigger fish to fry, and I don't think they're going to overlook the Islanders, but at the same time, they're focused on where they want to get to as well. So it's going to be interesting that this first 2-round series, because I think all the first round series are going to be quite interesting for different reasons and for different needs. But the Rangers and Carolina both have high objectives for this season, and that's why I think those two teams, they're obviously a much higher step above the Islanders and the Capitals. So I'll take Carolina, but I'll say it goes 7. I think the Islanders will give them some trouble.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I think we're both in agreement that Islanders will be a tough out, but ultimately they'll be out of these playoffs. So let's move over to the Atlantic Division, and let's start with the top team there, Florida, who kind of snuck up and took the division from Boston with a late push last couple of games of the season, and they will take on the first wild card team, which is Tampa Bay. So this is a battle of the state of Florida, and we have who also happen to be the last 2 Eastern Conference winners, right? Florida and Tampa Bay. So this is a tough matchup here. So why don't you give us your thoughts?
This is a juicy matchup because you got the Sunshine State rivalry there. Tampa knows how to win. They're probably disappointed with their first round exit last year to Toronto. Florida was on a high last year. They came in, it's interesting, right? Because it was an extreme. Florida won the President's Trophy the year before and lost in the first round. they came back the next year. They're a wild card team. They beat Boston, and then they go on a run to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, it's an interesting matchup. Tampa Bay, I mean, they finished the season strong, man. They got 98 points, and you got to remember they were without their goaltender for much of the season, right? So this will help them, Vasilevsky. Like, it's going to help them because he hasn't played a ton of games in terms of through the entire season. He's had to ramp himself up over the course of the season. So, and they made some nice late season trades. So I'm gonna pick an upset. I'm gonna pick Tampa. I think they're coming in. They're focused. I know Florida's focused on getting back to where they are from last year, but it's really hard to go through 4 rounds back-to-back years and get to the Stanley Cup, win the title. Tampa Bay knows how to do it. They know how to win. This is one of their last chances to win, right? I think the window is closing, and so they kind of know that. It's a little bit of a desperation, but I'm going to go with a slight upset and pick Tampa to beat Florida.
Interesting. Yeah, that's totally plausible because of how tight these teams play each other with that rivalry that we already, touched on. And on also the core of this Tampa team who's, not too far removed from their cup runs. And so they still got a great coach, John Cooper. They still got the core of their team. And when you have Vasilevsky in net, you always have a chance. So I think Vasilevsky coming back late in the season from injury took him some games to get into form, but lo and behold, he looks like the old Vasilevsky heading in, and that could be bad news for Florida. So Florida, we watch a lot of. I think safe to say that you're like me and you watch a lot of Eastern Conference hockey games. So we've seen Florida a lot of Florida games, and they play that big, heavy style, and they're got talent at all their positions. I like their coaching too from Maurice, and I think that run from last year was no joke, as evident by us carried over into the regular season. Strong regular season from them. Bravovsky's back in form, so it seems, and I like Florida to overcome Tampa Bay in a tough, hard-fought series. I just think they're just a little bit too deep for Tampa Bay. I think when it goes deep in the lineup, the first line, maybe the second line, they're so good that sometimes they cancel each other out, and it's left to the third and fourth liners and favorable matchups. And I think Florida just has more. They have more weapons in the cover to come out on top. So I like Florida probably in 6 or 7 in a hard-fought series.
No, absolutely. I can see that and understand that because Florida has been one of the top teams all year. They've been battling Boston. Boston jumped out had a really great start to the season, but Florida over time just slowly creeped them down. Creeped and ran them down, right? And they've had their run. So it's going to be a tough series. Obviously, there's you have some people who can create a lot of problems. Last year, Kachuk, took Florida on his back in certain times and just really brought him to the Stanley Cup Finals. So absolutely, they can come back and they can definitely get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm not discounting them. Just think that Tampa, is. I think they were really disappointed losing last season. I think coming back, they thought that they could get to the Leafs, and I think losing to the Leafs kind of burden them a little bit. It gives them a chance because they're rested now. I mean, they went 3 years in a row to the Stanley Cup, right? I mean, it's hard to do, and so, but yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I think it's going to go 7 games. I don't see this going to go anything less than 7. I'd be shocked if it went less than 7. I think these two teams are going to battle, and it's going to be a very tight, hard-fought series. Obviously, Florida's got a little bit more talent, but I think they're gonna battle for 7 games.
Okay, so we're split on that one, and this takes us to our final Eastern Conference matchup for the first round, and the Boston Bruins will play host to the Toronto Maple Leafs in an original 6 matchup. So this is these two teams are familiar foes. They've met each other several times over probably stretching back 8 to 10 years. So who do you like in this matchup between the Leafs and the Bruins?
So this is an interesting series. If you look at all of the statistics going in, the history of this rivalry. I mean, I heard it today. Boston's like 6-0 in their last 6 series against Toronto, and we know they have the home ice advantage. We know all the things that have happened in the past, and it could be psychological. Boston's not the same hockey team that they have been in past years. They don't have the same goaltending, although their goaltending is still very good, but they don't have the same goaltending as they had in past seasons in terms of, Tuukka Rask and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting. If I'm playing the percentages and I'm a betting man, I'm taking Boston to win. Even though in my heart I want the Leafs to win, but you gotta look at history. You gotta look at psychology, and the Bruins have the Leafs number. So until the Leafs break that streak, that thing, you can't push them to win. So I'm going with Boston because it just makes sense, right? That their thing. Now, is there some stuff that could help the Leafs and help them over that? What happened to Boston last year? They were the best team in the NHL. They ran away the league, and then Florida beat them. Florida beat them up in the playoffs, right? And it was a shock to everybody. But so that could happen. But the Leafs aren't that team that has that. If the Leafs own them in the regular season, I'd say there's a chance. But Boston owns the Leafs in the regular season. So I'm going to stick with Boston to win this series. It probably could go 7. Probably go tight there, and you think it could go 7. But I'll say Boston in 6. What do you got, man?
Interesting. Yeah, as much as that makes sense to me, I just think that what the Leafs have shown during the regular season, and I know that actually Boston swept the season series, even though some of those games were close this year. But I think that the Leafs match up better against Boston than they would have against Florida, and that just being that this version of Boston isn't as deep as previous versions with Bergeron and Krejci. Like, those are 2 quality centers down the middle, and you could see in Boston's play down the stretch here, right? Like, they look beatable. If it wasn't for, constant heroics from Swayman and the other goalie, Linus Ullmark. I mean, this is the best goaltending duo in the league. They got a solid defense. They're just not as deep at forward as they've been, and they've looked beatable, not invincible this year. Maybe that's better for them because they lost. They did look invincible last year. They had an invincible regular season only to be ousted by Florida in the first round in 7 games. So they don't look as good as last year, but that might be okay for them if they can replicate some playoff success. I just think the Leafs the Leafs match up better against Boston, especially if they balance out their forward lines like they have been doing down the stretch. And by that I mean, separating Matthews and Marner. Matthews seems to be playing good with Domi and Bertuzzi, and with some of the added, Leafs are a little more rugged to play against, probably more so than any other version that's lost to Boston in their recent matchups. So I think they have enough to beat Boston. I think they're a better team than Boston, and that's going to be my prediction. Now, of course, goaltending can really throw a wrinkle in that. Boston has such an edge in goaltending against the Leafs, who I'm sure don't know which version of Samsonov is going to show up at Game 1. And I think it's better the Leafs play on the road because there's too much pressure at home, especially if the goalie lets in a bad goal early at home. Like, that is psychologically damaging, and Leafs goaltending has been frail at times this year. So on the road, you could let in a bad goal and shake it off quicker than you would if you were at home in this situation where it's playoffs and you've been shaky at times. So, Boston could just swarm Leafs goaltending and cause problems and come out on top. But I still say that I think the Leafs are just a little deeper and more rugged this year against a lesser Boston version that they've faced in the past. The only thing that I'm worried about is the goals. I like the Leafs to win in 6.
Interesting thought. I mean, everything you say is true. I mean, the Leafs are a very, very good hockey team. They do have more talent than Boston. It's just a number, man. I just think that they have this challenge of trying to win that and win this and beat those teams and like teams like Florida and Boston have had their numbers. Now, they did overcome Tampa last year, who's had the number in the past as well, so that bodes well for them. But you're also right that playoff hockey is all about, I say one thing, which is goaltending. You get a hot goalie, you can go very far in the playoffs, and it doesn't matter how good your team is. Hot goalie gets you to far in the playoffs. I mean, if you go back to the early '90s, the Calgary Flames won a Stanley Cup because Mike Brennan was red hot. And they struggled out of that first round series against Vancouver, and were able to get through and win the Stanley Cup. But it's because Mike Brennan got really hot. So if Samsonov can get back to where he was playing when he came back after that little sabbatical he had, then there's a chance that Leafs could win the series. But he's not playing well right now. Joseph Waller has not looked the same since coming back from injury. And do you want to put Martin Jones in there? I mean, those are your options there. Whereas Boston, they're going to get very good goaltending, and like I said, they've had their number all year. So the thing for the Leafs to win this series is if they break the streaks. They're breaking streaks here to win the series. So the streaks have to fold at some point, and that's an opportunity there for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're split there, and that does it for the Eastern Conference series. I'm going to put up our picks on the screen here so we can get a summary of them. And we will be back to preview the Western Conference in our next episode. So I want to thank ddawg for his time today.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
All right, and we're off to the races. So we will see you, and ddawg will talk to you our upcoming Western Conference preview. So until then, we'll catch you later.